Time now to take another look at the papers. Here with me to review them this morning are the broadcaster and journalist Bidisha and CEO of International Marketing Partners Alison Stewart-Allen. So welcome back to both of you. And we should reflect the fact that the main story that dominates the front page, not on all of them, but on a lot of them, is the ongoing concrete crisis, you could call it, couldn't you? That's affecting already a lot of schools and questions over whether it could affect other public buildings in future, Bidisha. You picked out the Guardian to kick us off on this.
Yes, although as you say, this is such a concern across the board that all the papers have covered it in some form or another, because the schools are going back, if not last week, then it's the week coming. And it's what we've suspected for a very long time, which is that you go into your local comprehensive or you walk past it and you think, this looks like it hasn't been refurbed or looked at in quite a number of decades. And so, of course, the chickens have come home to roost, or the concrete's come home to crumble. And buildings that were standing up reasonably well are now not fit for purpose. And so you've got schools up and down the country asking themselves, well, where can we house our pupils? Are we going to have to send our own students right back to Zoom learning or Skype learning after 3.5 years of a pandemic? Where can we put them? Of course, this is all down to very long-standing factors, underinvestment for decades.
And yet new information as well about a concrete that they thought was okay, and the government says that in some cases very recent information, they say, has led them to believe that structures they thought were safe may not be, and so they're exercising the ultimate caution, but we don't know the extent of it, do we? And there are still plenty of schools that haven't reported back. Some are saying they're being asked themselves to take a look around and see whether or not they think they've got it. So there's still a lot of questions about the extent of this.
Yes, and what I'd really like to see is buildings being built with a sense of the long term in mind. It shouldn't be the case that supposedly expertise contractors and builders say, okay, well, this concrete seems fine. Let's just go with it and see what happens. And it's also not the job of school staff to assess their own buildings. This is a job for the experts.
Well, yes, and I think surveyors are going in at later stages, aren't they?
Yeah.
Lots of questions, lots to be discussed, and it will be over the days ahead. But let's crack on with other papers in the meantime, shall we? And Alison, you've got a story here. On my notes, it just says Kane Lederhosen.
Yeah, Kane und Lederhosen. I lived in Munich and for 4 years as a kid. So seeing Harry Kane in Lederhosen with a couple of other Bayern Munich fellow players is all part of what you do when you have a sponsor. And Paulaner Brau, which is one of the most popular beers in Bavaria, is of course a Bayern Munich sponsor and wants to promote its affiliation with the club. So unfortunately, probably Harry Kane wasn't too thrilled to be in Lederhosen. It may not be the last time he's in Lederhosen, but what it is really is a story about the power that sponsors have in the world of sport and actually almost everywhere. I mean, you can you sort of think about even the Barbie movie and the fact that some companies like Chanel feature prominently as sponsors, if you like, of Mattel Barbie. This is akin to that. So why this is a story is because there are lots of examples of in sport where that you have to do what the brands who are paying the fees, if you like, indirectly, you have to do what they want you to do. And in this case, it was having to wear lederhosen and pose very fetchingly. And actually, we were talking about it before coming in this morning about how it's actually, they don't look too bad.
They look really
in their lederhosen. They look quite relaxed and comfortable.
Could have washed their lederhosen.
Yeah.
They're looking a little bit grubby though.
They are a bit grubby. Yes, they do look a bit grubby. But, this is what you have to do if you want to keep your sponsorship money.
Very interesting. Okay, take us, meanwhile, to the front page of The Telegraph. It's actually one of their news in brief. There's obviously more inside. This is about the COVID disinformation unit. Remind us what that was.
This was a secretive sounding unit that the headline says it worked with spies in the British government. It's not quite as dramatic as that. It's not as dramatic as wearing lederhosen, being forced into lederhosen. It's about the pandemic years when the government was extremely concerned that a huge amount of disinformation and misinformation about COVID was getting out. Of course, we are now on board with the science. I think that no one would deny the basic facts about the pandemic at all. In the early days, if you cast your mind back 3.5 years, there was lots of disinformation about it. People didn't know if masks and vaccines were effective. They didn't know what any of these things were. There was a huge amount of skepticism. So the government did have a unit working with British intelligence, let's not call them spies, shall we? British intelligence operatives to make sure that social media platforms, group discussions weren't dominated by people who were skewing the facts and causing alarm and distress or sending people away from the very simple measures. After all, wearing a mask, getting a vaccine, these are not super dramatic. That would actually save their lives and those of others. I don't think that this is cause to say, well, there's a secretive nanny state, they're controlling what we do. It's not that. It's about the opposite. It's about stopping the spread of anti-scientific damaging data.
And I think they were worried about people deliberately spreading false data, weren't they? And apparently the unit was in operation before, trying to stop kind of interference in elections, I think. So there was that sense that it was around anyway, but I guess it did cause some controversy because people worried that it was stopping freedom of speech.
Yes, but it doesn't. I mean, I am not surprised at all to find that the British government or any national government has a network of intelligence operatives. This is what we famously know about governments, and they are trying to stop interference and bad practice.
Okay, we're going to go to Feet Up Friday now.
Yes, we are, which is
Alison,
great. Absolutely.
Which paper is this? This is the FT.
This is the FT. So it's really, I guess, a story about the future of work. And there has been some research or some analysis done of people who swipe into their office buildings in New York City. And the conclusion has been that on a Friday, occupancy in buildings is roughly 20%. Now, COVID has accelerated this working from home on a Friday and even a Monday and a Friday. What we're finding and what this article is suggesting is that Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays are the in-office days. That's when teams are getting together in person, that we're all much more relaxed about working from home on a Monday and a Friday. Some employers are finding that a 4-day work week even is the way forward. There was a study done here in the UK, actually groundbreaking global study with 61 British companies that said, we're going to experiment with a 4-day work week and see what the impact is. And actually, the findings are incredible. Firstly, staff satisfaction, employee satisfaction was significantly higher. Fewer people quit, productivity was improved, and importantly, the bottom line of the company was not impacted negatively. So now companies in other parts of the world outside the UK are saying, well, actually, maybe the 4-day work week should be the new normal because of all of these benefits. They're not specific to the UK. A 4-day work week delivers benefits all over the place.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Really interesting study, but also interesting that if companies did introduce it, whether or not they'd also say, well, we'll pay you 4/5 of your salary.
Well, no, but they're not. That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's why there's the high satisfaction, because I'm still being paid my salary, but I am working 20% less.
That would definitely improve the mood a little, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
Okay, we are out of time once again. It goes so quickly. But I'll see you both in the next hour.
You will.
Thanks both very much indeed.
Thank you.